video is to demonstrate how to make the pizza for the 8th grade lab, okay? So the first thing that we're gonna do is the assistant cook is gonna need to get out the tray and get everything ready. I jumped a few steps ahead because in the previous videos, you guys have seen how to get the ingredients from the ingredient table and how to set everything up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna summarize what you need to have on your tray. So if you are the assistant cook, this is what you will need to have on your tray. On the tray, you will need to have 4 bowls. You will need to have a teaspoon and a 1/4 teaspoon. You will need to have a 1/4 cup and a straight edge spatula. Okay, so I'll repeat. On your tray, you need to have 4 bowls, 1 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon, 1/4 cup, and a straight edge spatula. So if you are on the, if you're either the assistant cook or server, or sorry, if you are either the head cook or manager on the equipment supply list, make sure you're writing down what the assistant cook is gonna need for their tray, okay? So if you are the head cook or manager, you're writing down, make sure you highlight it or star it or write, this is what's for the tray, put a box around it so you know this is what we need to get for the tray, okay? So those are all the items there. Now, while the assistant cook is getting the ingredients from the ingredient table, they're gonna be getting these ingredients. They're gonna get the whole wheat flour, which will look in about something like this in a bag. They're going to get the oil. We're gonna use vegetable oil, even though the recipe says to use olive oil, we're gonna substitute it with vegetable oil. You're gonna need to get the sauce. You're gonna need to get the yeast, and you're going to need to get the cheese, okay? So if you are getting the ingredients, these are the ingredients that you're gonna get from the teacher that are not in lab. They're from teacher. So I'll repeat. Whole wheat flour, oil, yeast, sauce, cheese. Those are the things that you will need to get from the ingredient table, okay? Now, if you are the head cook, you're back in the unit, you need to get and measure out the ingredients that you need that are in the unit. So those ingredients are going to be your flour, okay? So everyone has kind of a different flour container, but you're gonna need to get your white flour, okay? And I just measured that into this cup here. I just put 3/4 cup into here. You're going to need to get the sugar, okay? Which I measured into this one right here. The sugar was 1/4 teaspoon, and then the salt was 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and I measured those with those cups. So I got those already measured. So you'll need to measure out the white flour, the sugar, and the salt, and my salt container was empty, and that's why you don't see it right here, okay? So those are all the things that the head cook will need to measure. Now, what the head cook will need to get out of the cupboards, he'll need to get she'll need to get a cheese grater, a plate, the stand mixer, the whisk attachment, the paddle attachment, and the dough hook. So the head cook will need to do that. The head cook will also need to measure out 2/3 cup of very, very warm water in a liquid measuring cup. Okay, so the head cook will need to measure that out as well. Okay, other equipment that the head cook will need to get out includes the pizza pan, cook spray, pizza cutter, and a turner spatula. All right, now before we want to do any of this stuff, we want to get our oven preheated. So we're going to get our oven preheated over here. It is going to be up to 500 degrees, which is a very hot temperature, okay? So remember, bake, turn to the temperature you want, press start, okay? But before you do that, we're going to need to move the oven racks. So you're going to need to take the oven rack, watch out, Colton. You're going to put it to the second bottom spot, the oven rack, and you're going to take a jelly roll pan or a cake sheet style pan. you're going to turn it upside down, and you're going to put it on that bottom shelf. And the purpose of that is it acts like a pizza stone, so it's going to cook that bottom evenly and quickly, okay? So you got to move the oven rack to the very bottom, and then you're going to put that baking sheet pan on the bottom rack upside down, okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do right now, so we have all our ingredients measured, we have everything ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and give this to my helper group, and they're gonna go ahead and grate that cheese over there. Okay, so while they're getting the cheese grated, we're gonna start working with this stuff. So it said the first step, it says bloom your yeast as instructed. So I'm gonna teach you how to bloom the yeast, okay? So the first thing that you're going to do to bloom your yeast is you're gonna take your water, and you're going to put it into the bowl with the yeast, and then you're going to use a spoon, or in this case I'm just using a measuring spoon because it's right there, and I'm just going to kind of stir that up a little bit, and that's going to wake the yeast up. It's going to help it to grow. Okay, blooming is where it has bubbles, so we want it to grow so it has bubbles. Okay, now it doesn't tell you to do this in the recipe. You just need to know you need to do this. Is you're going to take a pinch of extra sugar, not the sugar you measured out, an extra pinch of sugar, and you're going to put that in there. So you want to write that down, that you're going to need that extra pinch of sugar in there, okay? So that is how you bloom your yeast, okay? So it's going to bloom, and we're going to see bubbles appearing in it, and then that's how we know it's going to grow, okay? Step 2, it says combine whole wheat flour, all-purpose flour, salt, and sugar in the mixing bowl and mix until combined. Okay, so what you can do for that is you can use the whisk attachment, or honestly, you could just use a fork if you want. It's really up to you. So I'm going to take both my flours, so the white flour, the wheat flour, the salt, the sugar. I'm going to put it in my mixing bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and mix that up. Make sure I lock it. Now, I want to turn it on the lowest setting, otherwise the flour will poof out everywhere, and that would be bad. All right, so that's good and mixed. One thing that I forgot to get out, head cooks, that you're going to need to get out is you're going to need to get out a rubber spatula. Whenever we use these kinds of mixers, you always want to know to use a rubber spatula. Okay, excuse me. I need to grab a rubber spatula. Okay, so we always want to scrape the sides. That's always important for mixing in these kinds of stand mixers, is scraping those sides, okay? So make sure we get that all mixed, and that's good to go. Okay, the next step tells us to do combine yeast, water, when bloomed, and oil. So I see bubbles here. Take a look. I see bubbles. I know that it's bloomed. I know it's ready to go. Now, if you add too cold of water or too hot of water to the point like where it's burning water, it will kill the yeast. Too cold will not wake it up, and you'll need to do it again. So you just want it really, really, really warm. I know that in my instructions it says hot. The reason I put hot is because kids don't understand what really, really, really warm means. Think of a very, very warm bath that you get in, and it's significantly warmer than your body temperature, and that's what you want. But not burning, okay? Not burning, okay? So I have my bubbles. It's ready to go. Now I'm going to take this oil. I'm going to put it into my mixture here.
What will you do, Daddy?
Oil. Okay, so I just kind of stir that up. It's not going to mix all the way, but it'll mix once it gets into the other areas. Okay, so the next step we're going to do, let's see, it says, okay, so combine yeast, water, and blah, blah, blah. With the motor running, gradually pour enough of the hot liquid. This is the hot liquid when it says it's talking about this, okay? So gradually pour enough of the hot liquid into the mixed, until the mixture forms a sticky ball. The dough should be quite soft. If it seems dry, add 1 to 2 tablespoons warm water. If it's too sticky, add 1 to 2 tablespoons of flour. mixed with paddle attachment. Almost like 90% of the time it's going to be flour you're adding. It's really rare that you're going to be adding water unless you measured incorrectly. Okay, so we're going to mix this for a while with the whisk, and then we're going to switch to the paddle in just a little bit. So we want to lock it. We want the motor to be running on low, and we're going to just slowly add that in. Let it mix for a little while. Then we're going to add some more. We're going to let that mix. And I have a little bit stuck on here. All right, we got to stop and scrape our sides. So I'm going to...
Can I look at it more?
I will in a second. I'll show it around, okay? So I want to... starting to form like a ball shape, which I'm going to show you in just a second. Let me just get this dough off the whisk. We don't want to go too long with the whisk because this happens where it gets really stuck in there. Question?
It looks like oatmeal.
Well, it's because of the whole grains of the wheat give it that appearance. All right, so now while this is happening here, so the reason why we put in that wheat flour instead of just using white flour is the nutritional value of the wheat flour, plus it adds an interesting flavor and texture that's a little bit different than what we're used to. Okay, at this point it's going to look something like this where it's starting to form into a ball. Okay. So it's going to look like that. And then we're going to switch to the paddle attachment, but before we switch, we want to scrape the sides. Scraping the sides and the bottom is extremely important to making sure things are mixed well and getting fully incorporated. Now in the cookies, we were worried about over mixing, but for the dough, we want to mix it a lot in different types of methods so that it gets nice and thorough. Okay. Mine is already in a ball from this step forward, so I think I'm just going to switch to the dough hook already. Now for this part, it wants me to knead it for 5 to 10 minutes, and I really mean 5 to 10 minutes. So you're going to knead it with the dough hook. You want it on a lower setting, like a 2 or 3. You know, you don't want to go higher than that. And this is really, really important, okay? So my dough looked perfect. I didn't need to add anything else to it. But later, if it's too sticky, I can add a little bit of flour. But right now, it's looking really great, so I'm not going to add anything else to it. All right, so this is going to go on for about 5 to 10 minutes. This is super important. Kneading is what gives the piece of dough the texture. You want to develop the gluten. Gluten is a protein that's inside most grains. Everybody hears the term gluten-free. It's talking about gluten-free from wheat. Okay, but corn has gluten, rice has gluten, a lot of different things have gluten in them. It's just that wheat gluten, some people have a hard time digesting it, so there are alternative flours you can get. For this type of dough, we want to develop that gluten. We want it to be stronger. If you've seen like TV shows or movies and they're like making pizza, the dough is really stretchy, and that is because of the strong gluten development in the wheat dough, okay? So go ahead and stop the video for now.